Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh and good day to everyone. My name is Siti Norzulaiha binti Misbah and my metric number is S52404-FINAL. Today, I will present about my research study, which is a study of IMO 2020 regulation and its implementation towards sustainable development goals in Malaysia. First of all, maritime transportation is the backbone of the global trade that carries around 80% of world trade to expedite the global economy. However, due to the high movement of ships, shipping traffic and related activities in maritime trade have caused significant harmful effect to the marine environment and human health. Vessels are accountable for more than 80% of world air pollution due to the exhaust gas emissions. Mostly, fuel used for transportation is petroleum-based, and the combustion of fuel has contributed to the high portion of the sulfur oxide emission. So, what is the IMO 2000 regulation is? In the beginning of 2020, the IMO has implemented new sulfur regulation, which is set a new limit on the sulfur content in the fuel oil used on board ships. For your information, the International Maritime Organization, which is IMO, is a specialized branch of the United Nations, which is issue global regulation on the safety, security, and environmental performance of global shipping. The IMO 2030 regulation is consistent with MARPOL Annex 6, where the ships must comply with sulfur oxide limit of 0.5% mass by mass. So, herewith, the purpose of the study is to determine the status of IMO 2030 implementation in Malaysia and to evaluate the linkage of this implementation towards sustainable development goals. Next is literature review. Air pollution has become a major issue that discussed at the IMO. Shipping industry emit 2.57% of the global emission of carbon dioxide in 2007 and may increase to 6% by 2020. In Malaysia, 95% of the international cargo being transported through seaborne transport indicate that the importance of maritime sector to the economic growth and livelihood of the populations. So the consequence of increasing demand for shipping service as global seaborne trade grow lead to the high bunker fuel consumption, which result to more harmful element emissions into the atmosphere. Hence, the economic growth that contribute from maritime sector has simultaneously led to the environmental pollution risk. According to International Maritime Organization 2019, in the atmosphere, sulfur oxide can lead to acid rain, which not only harms to crops, forests, and aquatic species, but also contribute to marine acidification. In fact, acidification of water bodies can cause large-scale negative impact on aquatic organisms, including fish. Other than that, the sulfur also harmful to human health, that causing disease like stroke, asthma, cardiovascular disease, lung cancer, and pulmonary disease. Based on previous case study, which is the impact of the increasingly strict sulfur limit on the compliance option choice, the air pollution from ocean-going vessel is responsible around 60,000 cardiopulmonary globally, and lung cancer deaths of about 15,000 to 20,000 deaths in East Asia. So, we can see that sulfur emissions from shipping activities have drawn significant attention among maritime agencies. For the methodology part, the approach used in this study is a qualitative research method that focuses on thematic analysis. The interview sessions were conducted through online platform, which is Webex, in order to answer the research question of this study. The interviewer are from Marine Officer of Safety, Security and Environment at Marine Department, Malaysia, and the CIMT Director at Maritime Transport Training Institute, Madrid. There are several questions that has been asked to the interviewers in order to complete the study in terms of implication, readiness, and approaches. As a result, the findings are stated in the table that follows. There are three categories of finding, which is the implication of IMO 2020 regulation, the readiness of maritime agencies, and the best approaches for IMO 2020 compliance. Okay, first is the implication of IMO 2020 regulation. Based on the expert opinion, the aim of IMO 2020 implementation is actually to provide an environmental and health benefit for ports and surrounding coastal areas, which is purposely to reducing the emission from heavy bunker fuels. The impact of IMO 2020 regulation has given benefit to our nation in terms of our people to get clean air. It also will improve our human health that can reduce a disease such as stroke, asthma, cardiovascular disease, lung cancer, and pulmonary disease, especially for population living close to port and coast. As a result, the sulfur emission will be reduced by 8.5 to 8.9 million metric tons per year due to the introduction of MARPOL Annex 6 requirement in 2020 rather than 2025. Okay, next is the readiness of maritime agency. Marine Environment Protection Committee (MEPC) is a technical committee under IMO that formulate and introduce major international convention for the protection of the marine environment. A set of guidelines for the consistent implementation of the MARPOL regulation was developed by IMO and issued by the MEPC. So the interviewer has highlighted that Maritime Agency is getting ready for any new IMO requirement through MEPC meeting, but the administration, which is flag state, should engage them regular basis to assist on the guideline, time frame, and taking into account the consideration of requirement of ships plying domestic Malaysian water. In this part, Malaysian port also aim to promote safety, health, and environmental agenda in its daily operations, such as Marine Department has support GHG reductions project in Malaysia port, and currently 3 major ports, which is PTP, Port Klang, and Bintulu port, identified suitable for this emission reduction project. Furthermore, NARPORT has celebrated the arrival of the first cargo of IMO 2020 compliant low sulfur fuel oil (LSFO) at its South Point terminal on January 20, 2020. So we can see that Port Klang is preparing to become Malaysia's bunkering hub due to strategic location at the busiest shipping lane in the world and has given them competitive advantage in order to achieving this goal. The last finding is the best approaches for IMO 2020 compliance. According to the expert opinion, there are 3 approaches that can be used by the ship owners to reduce sulfur oxide emission, which is switch to low sulfur fuel oil, install scrubber, and use alternative fuels such as LNG. For the first method, the ship owner can switch the heavy fuel oil to low sulfur fuel oil as the requirement of IMO 2020 regulation, where the ships must comply with a sulfur oxide limit of 0.5% mass by mass. Furthermore, the vessel that has modification are not required for this method. Next, they also can install scrubber. The expert has highlighted that it is the best approach because some ships can limit the air pollutant by installing exhaust gas cleaning system that also known as scrubber. On the Malaysian part, most of the ship owners said that they didn't afford to change the engines because for Malaysian vessel it is possible to change all the engines, including our neighbor country also have problem in these changes because the change of engines include 10 billion US dollar. Hence, they still want to use bunker fuel oil, so they can install the scrubber as a method in order to meet the requirement of IMO 2020. Lastly, the ship also can have engine that use alternative fuel which may contain low or zero sulfur, such as liquid natural gas (LNG). LNG has not substantial effect on greenhouse gas GHG pollution and can only be a partial alternative to zero carbon fuels. Regarding to the supply part, the expert also have mentioned that Malaysia has started to support LNG fuel, which means start supplying LNG fuel to the international vessel and still not supply to the Malaysian vessel yet. So there is initiative or strategy that Malaysia are doing now to promote the use of higher grade bunker fuel. As for the conclusion, in Malaysia, the implementation of the sulfur limit in terms of their enforcement are officially still in progress. There are several difficulties that Malaysian Maritime Agency face on the implementation of IMO 2020, such as the cost of implementation, unable to comply with relevant requirements due to the size of ship or operational limitation. Hence, the solution has proposed by the administration of Flat State, which is to ask them to provide an equivalent arrangement subject to administration approval. So far, the IMO 2020 regulations are effective to be implementable in Malaysia, but in order to complement it, they still use the MSN. Malaysia have ratified the convention, but they still not apply yet to their domestic law, and until now only apply to international vessel. I think that's all for me. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for lending me your eyes and ear to hear my presentation on this research topic. Thank you.